And we're back. All right, sorry for the radio silence. Had a lot of issues with my air conditioner. In just a moment, we're going to go through this 76 Pro Reverb with the typical 76 issues. But the reason I've not had a video up in a while is I've not had any air conditioning the past week and a half. My heart goes out to those in Europe who are having Memphis temperatures without Memphis air conditioning. But I also have not been having Memphis air conditioning. And it turned out to be, yes, a bad starter cap and a burnt blower motor, and I changed all that out with parts delays and all that fun stuff. And then it intermittently would not work, so it turned out to be also the old Honeywell board. Now, this Honeywell board, as it came in, had the shroud. I could not really see what was going on, but I knew from doing some voltage tests and just the general behavior, and also the fact that this is the only thing I had not changed, that is going to be the culprit. Now, I ordered a replacement, and I installed it, and everything's working just fine. It's still hot in my office because I turn off the fan in here when I do the videos, but the things we do for you guys, you know. But once this was out, I was able to take the shroud off and see, okay, exploded electrolytic cap. That one's also leaking from the bottom. This one's not going to be far behind. These two have some discoloration here on the solder pads. There's a pad here where it has desoldered itself from one of the high voltage relays. And so that relay needs to be replaced, and I need to put some jumper bus wire in there, and over here there's some discoloration where those caps are, and each one of these 1 or 2 watt metal oxides, I guess this is a 1 watt, these are 2 watts, or these are 1 watts, this is a 3/4 or half watt large one. Anyway, these have all been toasting the boards, so I'm going to order some new relays and a new, that's a bridge rectifier, I believe, and the new electrolytics and whatever value resistors these are. And I'm going to repair this and have this on hand as a spare, because the new one I got is not a Honeywell, and it is a generic OEM replacement. And it was still $200 with shipping. And this Honeywell lasted 25 years before it had issues. So if I put some Nishikon components in here and make sure everything's working right, for probably about $30, I'll have a good quality spare in case the new one goes south. But you know, this thing has the exact same problems you might find in a modern Blues Junior or something, only the bias is much better in this. Anyway, to the amp. This is the video for the owner, so I can show him everything that I think the amp needs. We can talk about price and all that fun stuff. So the original filter caps, they are beginning to leak electrolytic, just some brown yuck coming out. That is a precursor to actual failure. Sometimes they get big bubbles, and instead these are actually just venting right here at the seam, which is, you know, kind of nicer. They're less likely to explode this way, but this brown electrolytic should all be inside there. So these are untrustworthy, but there's been no heat damage. I'm going to make sure all the hardware holding the transformers is tight. All right, that all checks out. Next, we have a very mismatched pair of 6L6s here. Now, given that the 76 circuit has a bias balance, that might be just fine. Or they might be matched, but one of these tubes is probably much older than the other, so I have no guarantee that the tubes are good. There's been a lot of heat damage to the chassis here. Notice it all comes up. It looks kind of like a rust, but it's not just rust, it's heat residue. That'll clean up pretty nicely. So we may have to get some new tubes, but we may not. We'll know when the time comes. Feels like I need to tighten up the sockets, retension them a little bit. I'll check all the preamp tubes in a little bit. Let's get into the rest of the amp. Oh, regardless of anything else, you're getting a new power cable because this thing was in really bad shape. The rubber was beginning to degrade, and that's just not safe. It often pulls out at the end. So new power cable at the very, very least. Don't worry, they're cheap and easy to install. Inside, at the very least, all the electrolytic caps need to be changed. There's some over here as well that I can't really show you from this angle. No big deal. That's just when you change out the filter caps, change out the other electrolytics. These are the things that have a shelf life. All the other components have a pretty good shot of being fine. It's possible you got some noisy or microphonic ceramic caps. We'll find out when we power it up. It's possible you have some noisy plate resistors. We'll find out when we power it up after the recap is otherwise done. And, 76 has got that nice wax coating on everything, which often turns into leaky DC on the board. We'll deal with that if we need to. We'll jump off that bridge when we come to it. So this is the initial video showing what I know the amp needs. And at that point, once it has all the electrolytics changed out and the new power cable, and we're sure the tubes are good, we'll see where everything else is. It's like peeling the layers of an onion. Someone has changed out this resistor in the phase inverter, which goes from where the negative feedback connects and the tail of the phase inverter to ground. That solder joint does not look very trustworthy. I wonder why they changed that. That resistor rather, almost never fails in an amp. It can pull out of the solder joint because the board can warp. But anyway, no biggie. We'll just make sure that underneath that solder there is a good connection. An optional but highly recommended thing while you have the amp in. This has the 70s circuit with 330K grid leaks on the phase inverter, and it has a 10 nanofarad 0.01 microfarad input cap, and this has a ton more low end than a 67 concert would have had. And so the way to make this thing behave more like a 67 is to change out this 10 for a 3.3 nanofarad versus a 10 nanofarad. It's an easy, inexpensive part. The amp will not lose any lows in terms of what you want it to have. It just won't be flubby. It'll sound much more like the more desirable black panel amps from the 60s for the cost of one part. These electrolytics also will be changed. These are dual 80s for the period. I'll probably change it to a 47 and a 22. You don't need to have two 80s. Marshall did a similar circuit with just two 10s. Anyway, it may not be the vintage value, but it'll be a reliable, quiet bias section. I can do dual 80s or dual 75s, but there's no point spending for them. That's more capacitance than is necessary for that circuit to work well. Over here, we've got the typical grounds made to the hardware mounted to the power transformer. These often break loose and become unreliable in the 70s Fenders. Let's see how tight they are. I could turn that one quite a bit. Let's see if I can move these wires out of the way so I can get to this one. Turn that one a lot, and that's the main ground for the safety ground for the power cable. I can turn the other one that you can't see quite a bit. So yeah, if you want to, they're all tight now. We can leave them this way, or if you want to make it really bulletproof, I can remove these grounds made to the hardware, solder them directly to the chassis the way it was done in 67 versus 76, and replace all these with Kep's nuts. So the grounding functions of the amp are separate from the hardware that holds the power transformer in place. So the mechanical function is separated from the electronic function, but I'm not trying to spend your money for you, so it's your choice. If I remove these, clean them all up, put them back, they will be at least as good as they were in 76, but it is a thing. Now your amp has the push-pull master volume. If you pull it out, you get a gain boost because of the way the reverb circuit is wired. At the very least, I'd like to remove this bright cap off the master volume so the master volume is more transparent, doesn't get harsh at lower volumes. That's an easy thing. I just remove desolder from one end and lift it up in the air and just not connect it. We can leave the push-pull thing in place if you want. My recommendation is, just don't use it. But if you really, really want, and I'll be glad to talk to you about this after you see the video, all this wire goes along here and comes in here and goes into all this stuff here, which is a lot of extra components, and it's just a kind of a Charlie Foxtrot situation as far as the wire spaghetti, and it's just a more complicated circuit than the old one from the 60s, and the reverb unit in a Fender from the 60s is usually pretty well thought of by players, so it's up to you. We can leave it as is. Depending on our conversations after you see all this, one of the things that's a hallmark of this era is crazy excess wiring. We call it spaghetti. The signal paths are just really a lot longer than they have to be. It's just really sloppy. It's not going to give you as quiet a noise, as low a noise floor and as pure a sound as the 60s examples. I can make this, redo all this and make it really nice and neat. But again, it comes down to budget. So we'll talk. But these are considerations I want people to know if you decide to buy pretty much a 1970 and later Fender, and as the 70s progressed, so did the amount of spaghetti. The reason people value the 60s amp so much is not because the panel's black, it's because what's inside is much better built, much simpler. But this is still very good. The stuff you get in here in the late 70s is not far from being a fantastic amplifier. It just needs a little zhuzh, just a little zhuzh. Now I'll go through here, make sure the fuse is the right value and all that fun stuff. And the fuse holder's good. Let's see, should have held on to that. What fuse is in here? It's got a 3 amp, should be a 2 amp. 3 amp might be okay with modern wall voltages, but odds are someone just had a 3 amp and stuck it in there. I will confirm all that. The fuse holder is a little bit loose. I'll be tightening all that up on this side when I change out the power wiring, and I'll make sure that the ground switch is disconnected, the death cap's removed, and the hot is fused, then switched, and the neutral just goes to the primary per modern safety code. Anyway, if you've seen a bunch of my videos, you've already seen all this kind of stuff, but it's good once in a while to recap as the guy next door moves the lawnmower closer to my window and everything gets noisier. I'm not going to try to compete with the lawnmower, so I'm going to wrap this video up, but I will also be taking all these knobs off and making sure all the pots are tight and cleaning up this front panel. Hey, looky there, that input jack, totally loose. I should not be able to do that just from hitting it with my finger. Just the one, but you know, that's why I go through and remove the knobs and make sure all is well in Mudville, and I'll get all the dust off, make sure these switches are good. All the numbers are gone from this old bass knob on the normal channel. It's totally up to you. You may love the old look. If you want, these two knobs are not factory. These are not original knobs. This channel has the original knobs, but this is not a period, a very valuable period as terms of Fender knobs go. If you want, I can give you these original knobs in a bag. We can put all matching reissue knobs on here. You'll be able to see what the numbers are on your bass on the normal channel. Totally up to you, but I've got to pull all these off anyway to make sure everything is mechanically and electronically good. So it's no big deal to change out the knobs. We'll talk, we'll discuss, and when you next hear this amp, it will be a thing of beauty. Thanks for watching.